This is James Dixon. I'm so glad to have you tune in. This is Peak Performance Masterclass. It's where we take information, knowledge, and how to apply it to everyday life to succeed. I don't want you to just try to survive. I need you to thrive. And so I bring before you people that are changing the world. People who have done it for themselves. Why go out and get opinions when you can get consult from people who've actually done it? Today, there's none better in theater. There's no one I would rather introduce to you than Sally Dietlein. She's from the Hale Centre. I'm telling you, you're going to love this. You'll love her journey. We often celebrate what men have done, but today we'll celebrate what the will of anyone can be. Sally, thank you for coming on. Thank you for being present. Thank you for the impact that you make.
Oh, it's so fun to be here, James. To get to know you has been such a joy. So much fun. I've loved this.
Well, thank you. I wanted to talk to you about something. First of all, would you tell people a little bit about your background? What brought you here? How are you successful? What made you successful? What were the steps you took? If you were to give your bio, what would you say?
You know, it's interesting. I'm a little Wyoming girl. And so to think that anything that I would have any part of would be successful coming out of a little remote town, Lander, Wyoming, is an interesting thing for me and an interesting thought process. But I've always loved the arts. You know, I loved piano, I loved singing, I loved dancing. I went to the Brigham Young University and got a degree in interpersonal communication education with a minor in theater. And thought I was doing all right and was teaching high school. But I met my husband there. And my husband, Mark, is the oldest grandson of Ruth and Nathan Hale. And they had a lifetime of theater. And they started doing theater in 1934 in Utah because their church asked them to do some kind of a production, and they said, okay.
Yeah, I saw that, and there was $25 with the budget.
It was
for
20.
The year.
Yeah, and they said, no, that's not going to work. You're going to have to write something because we don't have $25. I mean, it was depression.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So they wrote something, and Grandma always said, if you see something you have written in lights and you hear it on the stage, you never put your pencil down.
Wow.
That's what she said. And so they began writing and performing. In 1944, Grandpa had been working at the Rio Tinto copper mines, which used to be the Kennecott copper mines. And he was taking his lunch pail there with him to work every day. And he said, Ruth, I just can't see me doing this every day for the rest of my life. She said, what do you want to do? And he said, I want to go to California and be in the movies.
Wow.
Which worked out pretty well because at that time, some of the major players were involved with World War II. We're talking Clark Gable, Jimmy Stewart. Right. They were all involved in the military at that time. So he went and he would be a milkman in the middle of the night and take acting classes in the afternoon and do all kinds of auditioning at night. And that went over and over and over again until he finally got a break. And the break was that he got into a movie with a young upstart named Gregory Peck.
Wow.
And it was going to be amazing, you know, until the producer dropped dead of a heart attack a week before they were to start production on the movie. And so, down went that hope. But someone said, hey, why don't you open your own theater? Because you know how to write, you're great actors. Why don't you just open your own and you can do whatever you want? So in 1947, they bought a little house in Glendale, California, on Colorado Street that would seat 125 people until the fire department came and shut them down to 99 to make it a 99-seat house. They did it theater in the round because they thought that was the least expensive, and they started to produce, and awards came. People started pouring through the doors. And so then they needed to build a second one. And to do that, they needed help. So they asked my husband's folks, Alan and Sandra Dietlein, to come in and help them at that point. They built a second one when they were running two. That one seated 220. they started filling those up. They built a third on Orange Street, and that one seated over 400, about 450 people. Finally, that was just too much to run three at the same time, so they kept that one going. But my husband, long story short, was raised in theater.
Wow.
And there is a lot of difference between a life in theater and a degree in theater.
You know what? You said something I wanted to highlight. There were a couple of things that stood out to me. First of all, that on the way to fulfilling his dream, it was Nathan Hale, right? So here it is. He has this passion. I want to go to Hollywood to become a star.
Yes.
I have that mindset. And at the time, there was a void because people were off to war. As he
Yes.
said. But during the Depression, when most people are broken, he found a way to make something of himself.
Yes.
And then be willing to work while he worked on his craft. So worked a job,
Yes.
then went to acting,
Yes.
but then him and his wife worked together, so they worked as a unit.
Yes.
Now, there said that there's great wisdom if someone is willing to plant seeds, water it, and grow trees that they may never sit under the shade under. And it sounds like what Grandpa Nathan did was that he raised up a grandson, your husband, and a boy who got to watch that grit, that type of hard work and discipline, he embraced it. It became a part of who he is. And you said that there's a difference between having a degree and then having the right temperature for something.
Yes.
And you're like, being raised in it changes the idea of where you look at it. Pick up from there. Tell me more about the passion it took to take on that mantle, though.
Well, long story short, both my husband and I graduated from Brigham Young University, and I began teaching school, and we finally got married. We met there, but we finally got married, and Grandpa and Grandma, Mark, my husband, had such a desire to do theater. Even though he graduated in finance, he thought, I really want to do theater. I've got to get back to it. And so we were in Pocatello at the time working for Xerox. When he decided, I thought, we're going to do what? He said, we are going to buy this little reception center, and we're going to put a theater in there, and we're going to do this. Just the night before we were to sign on those papers, Grandma Hale called, Ruth Hale, and she said, don't sign anything. Come help us start a theater in Salt Lake City. Wow. And we will invite our daughter, who was also Sally, and her family, and we will start a theater. And we said, okay. So we moved down to Salt Lake. July 12th of 1985 is when we opened. Before that, it was a frenzy. How do we make a theater come alive in Salt Lake City? We found a building that was an old lingerie factory. Oh. And it had a big open space in the middle where they had the sewing machines and plugs in the ceiling where the machines would plug in. And we thought, perfect, we can put lights there. So we would plug those lights in. We found an old movie theater so far south in California, it was almost in Mexico, that we found these old theater seats. We were scraping gum off the bottom of those seats, finding any old fabric we could to cover them, and cobbled together a 220-seat theater in the round in this converted lingerie factory that really looked like an X-rated movie joint from the outside. It was unbelievable. Wow. But James, people came. People started coming. And it was the most amazing thing to see them lined up all the way around the back of the theater. And at that time, I'd been involved with a lot of things, but Grandma would say things like, Sally, you're in charge of the publicity. You need to make sure these seats are full. So any of those little cards that you would get on your windshield, the grocery store, that was me. I put them all over. My husband was handing out tickets in elevators. Whatever we had to do, we cobbled together enough people to start filling houses, and it was a marvel to me. And one day, Grandma came up to me and she said, Sally, I think we should do a music. See, Grandpa and Grandma had written over 80 plays and musicals, many of them published. And so we existed a lot on those in the early days. They were just a great fodder for laughter and family fun. And so we used all of those that we could. And then she came to me one day and she said, I want to turn this play that I've written into a musical. And she said, Sally, I've written the lyric. And I said, this is a great idea. And she said, I want you to write the music.
Yes.
And I said, Grandma, I've never done this before. And she said, I want you to write the music. And that's when I learned that there are people who can see into you and into your soul and into your capability things that you don't see yourself.
Yeah.
And to listen to those people.
See, there's something you said that I want to tap into. I paused you when I was talking about how Grandpa was willing to put in that work. But I want to honor you for the fact that when you got the phone call from Grandma and she said, I know you're about to do your own thing. And there's so many young people that don't realize that legacy is only a legacy because other people pick up the baton and that we're building something. Wealth is not a one-generational thing because if it is, it's gone in a generation. It's something we pass on. And the wealth is not finances only. Wealth has to do with knowledge, it's passion, it's purpose. And when you got that phone call, you were willing to say, not be selfish, but to be able to say, let's go help build Grandma and Grandpa's dream. And come together as a family to do so. I got to honor that because it was scary, but it was also selfless. After doing that and picking up that purpose, you mentioned something else about being able to see that a lingerie place could one day be a destination for people to change who they are and see themselves through other characters. Then you took it to another level, I thought that was amazing. When you talk about the fact that as a family, all those plays that they had written, in those dark days and those broke days and those struggle days, when their opportunities and some of their dreams didn't come to reality, you went door to door, you went wherever you had to do to bring a crowd to hear them. And then you talked about having somebody in your life that could see into you what you couldn't see out of you. Talk to me about having that visionary for Grandma Ruth to be speaking into your heart. Tell me how that impacted your life.
One of the things that I learned is that you don't tell Grandma Hale no. You know, I think we say no too much in our lives. I think there are a lot of things we can say yes to. And sometimes that's scary, sometimes it's a foot into the unknown. I thought, I'm going to write music for people in the big city to see who know theater. But I said yes. And from that, I wrote 7 full musicals with her. And they propelled us forward, and they were done in other places in the U.S.
And what did that mean to you, though?
Personally, what it meant to me was, and I was tired. Oh, James, I was hauling around 4 little kids with me. You have to understand.
So wait a minute, so you had kids and were doing that?
We had 4 kids. Yeah. Our youngest was just not even a year when we started.
Wow.
And they, we had to, sometimes stick them in place to even know where they were. Yeah. I mean, I've got stories that would curl your hair, and you don't even have hair. It would curl your hair. It would be amazing what happened with that. But you find out when you push. I talk about my life, as an airplane. That you're soaring along and you're feeling kind of comfortable, and then someone says, all right, give it a little more gas, take it higher, move it a little harder, and you feel a little shimmy as that plane starts to soar. And I think life is that sometimes we don't get to the point where we feel it shimmy enough to know that we're really stretching.
Man, I love that. You said something, I have to jump on that one. You said when you had the kids there are a whole lot of people that think there's no way I can go after my dreams. There's no way I can put in this work if I have kids. If you would speak to men, women, especially women, what do I do if I have this passion, this dream? Do I wait till my kids are grown and then I go after it? Or can I chase it and still be present?
Let me tell you something about our kids. They learned responsibility early. And Grandma had a saying that kind of calmed me after a while. It was hard, but somebody asked her once, she had 7 kids. She lost one at a couple of days old, but how did you get judges and doctors and all of these people out of your kids, when you were so busy doing theater all of your life? And she said, well, that's easy. You just handle them with the proper amount of neglect. And I had to laugh.
You can't beat that.
You can't beat that.
Yeah.
Kids need to have some leeway.
Yeah.
And we learned that if we talked business with our kids all the time, they were interested. They found out that it was more interesting to be with us at the theater and do things with us than sometimes it was to be with their friends. Yeah. That they loved being with their grandparents because they were so upbeat and so forward-thinking, and with their cousins, that was very exciting for them. And then they learned that sometimes Mom and Daddy are going to be a little late coming home, and they would handle it. They would handle a babysitter or two, but they were also learning theater, and they were learning to build sets, and they were learning to be on stage.
So many skills with them watching, and they had firsthand knowledge.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's a thing there. Did you ever get the chance to tell Grandma Ruth how much you appreciate her?
Absolutely, I did, but she would deflect so much. I mean, she'd say thank you, but she would always make it feel like it was you. It was about Sally rather than about Grandma Ruth. Wow. She had that ability to make other people feel like the most important person in the room. And that's how she would get the best out of people. And Grandpa would quietly, you'd have to chase him and know where he was because, they started this theater with us when they were in their mid-70s. Wow. When other people are saying, I'm hanging up my boots.
Yeah,
they
it's
didn't.
Time out for me. I've done enough. And my time is up. It didn't happen during my lifetime. I'm just going to retire. But no, they turned it up.
Yeah, they turned it up.
Over.
I had created all these other theaters, and you'd think, okay, I can rest now. But no, they didn't. They wanted us to have the feeling of something that we wanted to do with their help so that we could get it done. And so to thank her, she passed away a lot of years ago. We would say thank you so many times, and we would try. I mean, even when she had a stroke, she was trying to roll on stage and do lines in her early 90s. Wow. There was no quit in her, and there was no quit in Grandpa. He passed a kidney stone on stage one night.
Now, see, that's the type of commitment I'm talking about.
I know.
And people have no idea. That's why there's a difference between, people say often, they were like, James, you're a top motivational. I'm not a motivational at all. You see, motivation is all on the external. It's the atmosphere around you that creates who you are. Yeah. I'm inspired. And inspired people come from within. Your Grandpa Nathan and Grandma Ruth, they weren't motivated. They were inspired by this. And that's why at 90, she was still trying to, or I can't imagine passing a kidney stone on, but I can tell you this, that quote, handle kids with the proper amount of neglect. That will last forever. But
should be on a shirt, right?
It should. That needs to be a saying, because it is the idea, we think, that the more we coddle someone, the more we're doing them service. But the truth is, you limit their growth and development.
That's right.
And they're more resilient, more talented, more gifted. And when you mentioned that when the kids were developing all these skill sets, they became specialists, and it wasn't based on an athleticism. It incorporated, for your example, with your husband, learning finance. Even though most of us, whatever we go to school for, we don't use. You actually did. But most of us, we don't. But you need those disciplines because somehow, one way or other, you probably got involved with the finances later, right?
Well, you know what? They started with a checkbook at age 6.
Wow.
He would have a weekly meeting, a monthly meeting with them, going over their investments because they could earn a little bit of money working at the theater, their investments, their charitable donations, their savings for themselves, and their checkbook. And they started when they were just tiny kids with him. Wow. Every month. They are all fabulous with money and great business people.
See, wait. See, for you, that was just the way that you developed life. But for most people, they've never heard those things. What was it that, as a mom, because a lot of times you'll see spouses be like, I think that's a little much in there for you to be starting them that. Let them be kids, right? What was it that made you say, yes, let's teach them those skills? Because the end shows not only was that wisdom, but that's the difference between having generations where you're trying to have a failure to launch using that, and having generations that can take things from a airplane to a spaceship. What kept you from like interfering with that and just embracing that wholeheartedly with your husband?
Well, the interesting thing is that there are a lot of marriages that break up, and a lot of people who have failure to launch because they're not good with money. No matter, and business, don't have any kind of a business head at all. And we didn't want our kids to face that. And money does not have to be the root of all evil. It can be the way that we are able to move ahead and get the things that make us happy and make us feel comfortable in life. And also to learn to give. We always had charitable donation as part of that. So it's a training and a mindset that has gone through to all of our kids, and they all do it, and they're all great at it. And successfully, they've worked with their spouses on that, all four of them, to be able to grow their businesses the way they have. And so I just feel like it's essential that kids aren't kept from what we're doing. I mean, any field of work, a parent can involve their child, can discuss it with them, can be involved in opening the world to them and talking over, what would you do with this problem I have? Allowing a child, and we did that with theater constantly. We've got some problem with concessions. This isn't going out right. What would you do? How would you handle this? We would get feedback from them. Some of the things some of the changeovers back of house that we were doing, or the hosting in the front of house. What would you do? How would you make that better? Wow. And really involve their thinking, because I'm telling you, children see things that we don't see, and it gets their minds starting to look for, how can I improve things, rather than just sit back and let the status be quo.
Man, you know what? I got to tell you, you guys took Think and Grow Rich and really made kids think so they would grow rich. It is, what's impressive about it is that you were like, you're right, you allowed for the creativity to be there. Most people would say the way the leadership that grew and that we were accustomed to is someone would do command and control, right? That's where they would say, I said sit down. I said do such and such. And it stifles the creativity. It makes people very obedient, but then there's no room for growth. It's the very reason why when someone goes to a restaurant and you're like, hey, there's a problem here. Can you take this off? And they're like, they can't make a decision or anything because they're used to command and control. And so they don't know how to serve people. What would you say, how would you define your leadership style?
In the theater.
Right.
I think it's this way every way. I think that talent in some people is innate, and it is so incredibly good that if you get in their way, you're going to stifle them, especially in the creative arts. So in the beginning years, we did everything. I was making costumes. We were making sets. We were doing all the publicity. We were doing, of course, there wasn't social media back then.
Right.
We barely
You had to actually be social.
We barely had we didn't have the DOS system. We had hardly anything. I mean, it was an incredible thing, adventure, and then gradually cleaning the toilets, doing whatever needed to happen. Gradually, we were able to start hiring, and we learned that you hire specialists. You hire above yourself. You hire the very best people you can, and you give them wings. You give them all the support you can. We work right now with about 95 full-time total artisans and hundreds of regular part-time. Last year on W-2s, with full and part-time, we had over 850 people on W-2s.
You realize, man, there was a time where you guys began the origin of this, and you weren't even allowed to go above 99 people in attendance. And to talk about having almost 900, that growth, that impact, that story. What's been the most rewarding part of your journey?
Seeing people happy, James. Seeing people create at the top of their game. We see that we have the most technological theater. It probably still is the most technological theater for live, legit stage in the world.
I would say that. I know that you were so committed to it. And you can give me detail on this. You know, to know that it took, 8 months to build that stage. To know that you guys, you brought in people from around the world. I mean, one of the top, I can't remember.
Tate
came in and they built this. And to know that you invested, you could have cut so many corners. You know how many business owners would look at that and say, I can't afford to invest 8 months into a stage. I'm not going to invest that. All we need is just put some planks out there and let people go out, put some carpet out there, redo it, some putty out. But you didn't cut those corners. Why did you invest in giving people the very best?
Because we want to astonish. We want people to come in and be astonished and so happy they can hardly stand it. And we don't want to give half of what we can do. We want to give all that we can possibly do. It makes us so happy to see the artisans creating at the top of their game because they have all the tools to do it with. It makes us so happy to see people sit jaw-dropped in their theater seat because they have seen something they can't see anywhere else. Yeah. It is so fun to be original in thinking, to challenge that, to be in that airplane, see those wings shake just a little bit and shimmy, and feel the soaring that comes from stretching. And we just love that. But mostly, I'll stand at the top of the mezzanine and I'll watch people pour out of the doors of both of the theaters that we have there. And they're smiling, and they're with their families, and they're with their little kids, and they're with their grandparents. And we'll see them just coming out so exhilarated and so happy that it makes me want to get up the next morning and go again.
Wow, I love that. I was thinking about the way that you taught us here about leadership. It was about hire people that have a skill set or even above yours. So you wouldn't ascribe to the thing where we feel like they're just going to come learn what we do, do it on their own. Or they'll take it from us, or we get intimidated by people with talent. Instead, you believe in bringing on the talent and empowering them to be even better and get them to be the best in the world. And the idea that you had was not about protecting yourself. That's scarcity, right? That's fear-based, where you're like, the abundance of talent, bring it here. Bring the best and then leave people astonished. And they said, there's a saying from Maya Angelou that said, people will forget what she said, but they will not forget how she made them feel. And that's what you do with theater.
That's what we hope to do. The arts have an ability to change us. I know people can go to a movie and they see a beautiful movie, and it's wonderful, and it's perfectly scripted, and it's perfectly shot, and it's perfectly edited. But when you go to theater, you're there when it happens. Yes. It's never going to happen quite like that again because humanity is involved. And it affects, and you're watching it in a communal way with other people where their hearts affect how you feel. There is an emotional space, especially the way we do theater, which is quite an intimate way of doing it. You know, our most far removed seat in the big theater is 10 seats back, 10 rows back, and in the smaller theater it's only 11 rows, and so everybody's close, and you have that emotional distance where you actually have that relationship with the people who are telling stories that hopefully will change you in some way. Maybe you'll go out with a different perspective because you get to watch something difficult in third person. Case in point, we do a lot of theater for during the day for children. We'll have about 15,000 children come free of charge to shows
amazing.
during the day,
Yes.
during the year. And at one time, we had the juvenile detention theater. Children come, kids come, teenagers, to see West Side Story. And they came in chains. I was there, and I sat behind them thinking, they didn't know who I was.
That's right.
And
Wow.
I just wanted to kind of sense from these young men how they were absorbing this. And at first they were, at least it got us out. We don't want theater, whatever. So then they're watching to intermission. And of course, West Side Story is about, well, it's Romeo and Juliet.
That's
It's
right.
two gangs that are warring and love that wants to happen but can't.
Can't because of
Because of the war that's happening. And at intermission, I kind of followed them out as they were going to get something to drink, and they're in their chains, and they're covered with all of the things that they've chosen to put on themselves in their life. And I bless those boys, and I listened to them, and they said, well, it's not too bad. And at the end, when there's that murder on stage, and it's an accidental thing that happens just because of anger and fear, and they watch that happen, they were completely silent, James. Wow. Completely silent, because they saw in them that.
Yeah.
And I have to think that they walked away different.
Yeah.
And so we hope that there's either an emotional difference or a feeling of joy that you can't contain, or happiness that makes you want to sing the songs all the way home and into the next day, or an ability to have laughed so much that they think, I haven't had that good a laugh in so long, and I needed that. I needed the distraction, or I needed the learning. Theater can do, the arts can do that. And theater is the granddaddy of all the arts. It uses music and dance and painting. It even uses mechanical arts, electrical arts, chemical arts.
It brings all these talents. AI cannot replace what you do.
No, it can't
That's
be.
right.
We're not worried about AI.
That's right.
The writers are,
Yeah.
and some of the musicians and things. But as far as actually putting it onto the stage, it is real.
You know what I love is something you said. For me, theater represents is I got to witness it. I feel like I watched that. I see a movie, I watched that. Experienced theater, and I witnessed it.
Yeah.
And the difference is one lives with me when I've witnessed it.
Yeah.
And I believe, well, first of all, I even want to say thank you for taking those kids. By sharing with them and allowing them to see what's possible. That one day I could be a thespian, one day I could move people, one day I could embody this. Or even I can go a different direction. I see the end result. I know how this makes people feel. And I could see myself in the death of that character and say, I don't want to leave this life that way. You have, there are keys of things that you use. There's got to be a ritual, something you do, a discipline that you've developed that has helped you stay the course and not feel this sense of burnout. After you got it up and running, when there was no longer a need for you to go ahead and pass out flyers, why is it that when we come, we still see you there serving, still watching people? What is it that keeps you going after the success has come?
I've been at it 40 years, and I'm 72 now.
Wow.
Almost the age that Grandpa and Grandma were when we started.
Wow.
And I think my friends are at the theater. I really can't stop watching people walk out happy. I feel like the culture of the theater is really important, and that they need to feel my love and my support. I feel like there's a measure of joy that still comes into my life because of it. And do I get tired? Oh, absolutely. But does my husband get tired? Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Am I married to Mr. Theater and we talk 24/7 theater? Yes. Have I never been able to leave this for 40 years? No, I have not. It's been there with me the whole time. But there's a reason why we're doing it. We feel it's a mission of happiness and hoping to bring our contribution of good to the world. We hope that. And the idea of this many artisans working in what they love to do and getting paid for it thrills us. Wow. It thrills us. From where we began with 6 people to now, it thrills us. So I'm a proud mama, but mostly I'm a grateful mama of all of these beautiful people who come in and out of our doors. And I hope that we can continue to just make the world a better place.
You're doing that. If you would do me a favor, there are undoubtedly, as an entrepreneur, as a woman who thinks that, man, perhaps their dreams are unrealistic because it didn't happen immediately. You mentioned 40 years. Means that you were already 32 when you began, right? Would you please talk to that lady about that the clock has not run out on them and that they can chase after it? Would you please speak to that heart?
Yes, because I have seen over the years with the thousands of people we've worked with, the thousands of women, the thousands of men who have started over. And it's not just on stage, but they'll come and they'll do something on stage. They'll get ignited and restart. It's never too late. I want everyone out there to remember that Grandpa and Grandma Hale started a theater again anew in their mid-70s. They were continuing to make things grow, continuing to want to make things. They said, we have more people we need to entertain. There are more people who need to be happy and feel the thrill of theater. And they with us and Mark's aunt and her family all did it together. And it was amazing to see their go. And they literally said, retirement makes you sick. So they decided into their 70s, after a short run of a retirement that they hated it, it's not too late to start. It's never too late to say, this is a dream I have. I want to go for it. Pick it up. Pick yourself up by your bootstraps. Go for your dreams. Don't squelch yourself and tell yourself you're not worth succeeding and worth having a beautiful ending, because it's there for everybody, I think.
Being a peak performer doesn't mean that you peak at an age. It's just like, in fact, I would think of it this way. Being able to peek into the future and see what you can be, and then chasing that down with everything that you are. And at the end of the days, and when all of our days are calculated, and we stand before our Father and saying, thank you for allowing me to serve, and hearing, well done. You have done a great job. You're doing a great job. And I thank you for being an impact person. I thank you for the lives and the families that you've been able to touch and feed. For every employee, for every part-time, for everyone that has walked in your place. I am thankful that God gave Nathan and Ruth a passion, but I also thank him for you and your husband, your family. But I'm talking about you specifically now. For what you've poured into people. You may never understand the depths of the impact you make, but there are people who are changing other people's lives because you touched their life. And I thank you for that. You have some major things that are coming up to keep inspiring people. You have some things that are going on at the Hale Centre. What do you have coming up?
Oh, my. Well, if I can quit crying, James, thank you very much, you dear man. We are in our 39th season. So in January, we start our 40th. We're there. And Christmas Carol, actually, this coming Christmas Carol will be our 40th annual production. But we have the the great inside scoop to be able to do things that haven't been done yet. We do the Time Machine is coming up, which is brand new. It's been originated out of the theater by Michael D. Fox, who works at the theater and all the music. It's our grandson who's written the underscore
Really?
for all. I mean, it's like a disease in our family. And then, we have a new Marvin Hamlish piece. I don't know if you know who Marvin Hamlish is.
I got on your site and I was looking at it, and that's why I knew the Michael D. Fox name. I was so
Yeah.
and I even wanted you, if you don't mind, talk about how you made it rain on stage.
Oh my gosh. Well, we had a recycling unit. And, during a drought, people wonder, how much you're going to lose. We only lost 5 gallons of water a night, but we would pour 35,000 gallons of water.
Wow.
Down onto the stage, and it rained. We had the stage also can hold like a swimming pool. It can be a giant swimming pool.
Wow.
So we had a boat in the middle and water, and the pirates were diving down into the water. We can do so many things. We can have fire, and we can have just amazing theatrical, technological things that just people are blown away. We grew the Titanic out of the bottom of the stage until it was a monstrous big piece that encompassed the entire theater almost. Unbelievable.
Wow.
It grew from the bottom up and from the top down. So, so we're inventing all of the time. We're going to have one show this year where we're having a specialized life-size elephant built that's going to be worked by 4 puppeteers on the stage in just the most breathtaking way. And we love pushing the boundaries and finding new ways to thrill people.
The way that you make it astonishing, amazing, appetizing, and all those things. I don't even know what that's going to be used in, and I want to go. That's how you do it. And so we have something coming up soon. What do you have that's going to be?
Well, right now we've got May We All coming up, which is a new country western musical straight out of Nashville. Georgia Florida Line is going to be is one of the writers. Dolly, Johnny Cash, Reba, Keith Urban, all those guys.
You're not just talking about random names. You're talking about Dolly, like
Dolly Parton, like
Johnny Cash.
No, they've all written the songs that are in this new Nashville musical that we're gonna do the regional premiere on. So that's coming up with live honky tonk band on stage, and it's gonna be so fun. And then the Time Machine, which is all new. And so we've just got all kinds of good things coming up, and we just continue to do it.
Well, you started with nothing, and you took it and turned it into something. You were able to take a mantle of another and then turn it into a passion of your own. When you see the Hale name on it, on the outside of that building, what does that do for you?
That's a whole history of thousands of people now from that Hale line who are good people. And we're representing some of the best people who ever walked the face of the earth. And we need to honor that name consistently.
That is awesome. When you saw the place for the first time I came, and you put on an event, and I was like, first I was amazed at how upscale, how you've made excellence your average, how gracious everyone, how the meals were served, how everyone was treated great. And the fact that I didn't even know your role there, and yet you were serving, you were willing to take up, put away plates, whatever. There was no task that was beneath you, and there was no role that made you, that you weren't a role, you were Sally. And I got to thank you for that humility, because you didn't allow roles to become your identity. You knew who you were. You just happened to serve in every role. From the girl that passed out flyers to the tickets to the mom that incorporated her kids, that learned that some neglect is great development for a kid, to being an icon, to setting the tone for excellence for the next generation. Thank you for giving us a peek into your performance. Thank you for helping us all be better performers. You see, everyone has purpose in life, a goal, a dream. We don't realize that we are a continuation of other people. Whatever success that you have, whatever it is coming off of the shoulders of someone else. For me, I look over my life, and it was my mother, my grandmother. They not only set the stage with their work ethic, but their passion and their prayers. Some of the inheritance that I inherited was the ability and the skill to be able to fight and overcome something. As a family, you listen to how the Hale family came together from a call. And that in the 70s, in the mid-70s, that people could say, we can begin something. The entrepreneurial spirit is one that can endure. If you ever want to see your name in lights, you got to do the work in the dark. And they did. And now when they see the name, whether it be day or night, the Hale name stands. But it's not about the family name. It's about the impact of bringing you into their family. Thank you for being a peak performer. This is the end of the masterclass.